Welcome to your Farm and Home Show. My name is Joanna Coles, and this morning we're visiting with Kristin Hildabrand, Warren County Extension Agent for Horticulture. We're going to talk about something that we're probably going to notice in the spring, but all this weather we've had this winter is probably going to cause some issues.
So, between the snow, the ice, a lot of times that can be very damaging to our landscape plants, but generally the issues start showing up. We get the phone calls or the office visits with concern of some of these plants. So one of the things that we generally see, especially with the going from warm to cold, is we can see winter burn and also desiccation injury. It seems like with this, it's worse with our broadleafed evergreens. So think about rhododendrons. You can have it with magnolias. You can also see it with a lot of the laurels and things like that. It can still happen to arborvitaes as well too. But generally what happens with this particular one is that you're going to see where there's, our plants are still transpiring, especially even in the winter time. You might not think that, but when we have the warmer days, then those stomates on the bottom of these plants, the leaves will open up, and then whenever it drops, the temperature drops, then that water can't be restored to those plants because the ground is frozen. So a lot of the times you'll start to see the winter burn show up in the spring of the year as it's coming out of, really starting to actively grow again. And then, for some plants, it can be very detrimental. A lot of the times, people will ask, is there anything preventative that I can do? And yes, there is. Sometimes fall, especially with some of these plants that I just mentioned, it's really important to make sure that you do provide water in the fall. Even in the wintertime when the ground isn't frozen, you can still supply water. A lot of times mulching with a 2 to 4 inch layer of organic mulch will also help with that to help that plant look good. So that's one case of damage that you'll see. The other one I wanted to talk about is winter cracking and also bark split. We generally see this with our thinly barked trees in the landscape. I'm talking about maple, red maple especially. We can also see it with other fruits, trees like apple and cherry, peach. So a lot of times what happens is that on the southwest side of your location, you'll start to see, everywhere else is going to be cool, but on that side, because the afternoon sun's going to be hot in that area, what happens is those cells will begin to warm up, and then we have a fast drop in temperature, and then we start to see discoloration and then that bark split. And so a lot of times people will kind of diagnose it through pictures and things like that, and that's usually what happens. So preventative things that you can do, there's a commercial tree wrap that is available. Generally you want to put that on after the last hard frost for the fall, so generally about November after Thanksgiving when we start to see it warm up. You don't want that tree wrap to be on there because you can have moisture issues, and again that opens it up to insects and other diseases. And then the last I wanted to talk about is salt damage. So over the course of the winter months, we're going to be using a lot of salts. And so a lot of times, if you have plants, especially evergreen type plants, in a sidewalk area, along a sidewalk, or even in the parking lot of a commercial building, or maybe even along a roadway, you'll start to see some salt damage that may show up. And so what happens is if you use a heavy accumulation of de-icing salt, that can also cause leaf scorch, and it can also look like winter damage. So a lot of times, I always recommend preventative things that you can do. A lot of plants are more susceptible to salt damage than others, and at the extension office we can provide you with some of the plants that are a little bit more tolerant to salt. Now again, if you get a heavy dosage of salt, it's still going to cause some issues, because if you have a lot around that root zone, it can cause issues for the plant. But if you would like any more information about winter damage, especially with our ornamental trees and shrubs, please give us a call at your local extension office.
Are they going to be able to see some of those symptoms, or are we going to see that when it starts warming up?
It'll definitely be more evident, to you in the spring of the year, but it's probably good still to survey the plants and again look at winter mulching and also watering if it is something that could be done at that time of year.
And then especially with salt, is make sure not to sweep that into your landscape, to sweep it out.
Yes, and if there's any kind of barrier that you can do with burlap, that's also really helpful, especially in those areas that in the driveway, along the sidewalk area. That could be another way that you could prevent that too.
All right, Kristin, we'll certainly appreciate the information, and we appreciate you watching the Farm and Home Show. See you next time.